Good morning. It's like the calm before the storm. Amy Jacobson here, John Anthony,
Hey.
for Dan Proft. We were waiting for it. I got up extra early thinking we're going to have a foot of snow on the ground.
Or ice.
Or ice. Got nothing. But I love wwhat you said because I did the same thing. I went on the porch and I put my foot out like, sweet,
Yeah,
sweet.
I didn't
Oh,
want
I'm
to
fine.
fall. I did not want to fall and break something.
John Anthony, former state rep, former police officer, and now the host of Black and Right, which is here on AM 560, Saturdays from noon
To 3.
to 3 o'clock. You got an extra hour, my
Yes.
friend. Good job.
Yes.
And we're watching all this craziness going on here at home and with our mask mandates. Other school districts have fallen, in case you're just joining us. Glenview, District 225, they are going to be mask optional next week. And we're still waiting for U46, which is Elgin. Chicago Public Schools, don't hold your breath.
What did Carrie do?
And Cary's still up in the air.
Yeah.
Cary 25, I believe. Cary High School is mask optional, but Cary Middle School and elementary schools, they are not budging.
Yeah. Oswego 308 went mask optional.
And District 201 is still mask mandate. So these are some crazy times. And you know what? Parents are finally speaking up.
And kids.
And kids, right. Because you were at an event last night.
Yeah.
And what were the kids saying?
I mean, they were just talking about how they won't comply. They're no longer going to do it. And they're getting, I mean, the administrators of these schools, one girl who spoke, Leslie Mendoza, she spoke, it's been a week and a half and she's still not back in class because she refuses to wear the mask.
I know. They walk around like they have the bubonic plague.
Yeah.
There's one kid in Elgin who wasn't wearing a mask, and teachers were hissing at him when he walked down the hallway. And that's the kid that was illegally held in a closet and couldn't get out.
What?
Remember, because did I show you the video?
No.
There's a security guard on the other side of the door, and then another time they locked him in the room. Other parents have to pick up their kids so that they could take them to the bathroom, and then they drive them back to school.
Yeah.
That's how barbaric this has become.
Yeah.
So
one kid talked about how he's being bullied because he refuses to wear the mask. I mean, he actually got cut on his hand from one of the kids, and nothing, as if it was nothing.
Here's a student from Elgin.
It is the law by Governor Pritzker to let me out of this room. You can't lock me in a room. You can't lock me in here. Please let me out.
Are you serious?
Yeah, we had his mom on, Nicole. She came on, and so it's just been some crazy times. But now we're going to switch gears.
I would have been
on
up
a
to that
very
school,
special
though.
dinner. Oh, I know. It takes every fiber of my being not to go and rip some of these school board members' eyeballs out because of what they've been doing to our kids. And that, like, there's no common sense anymore.
No.
Everybody relax. Teachers are so brainwashed. And I shouldn't say teachers because I know a lot of teachers who agree with me, like we're on the same page. Yeah. But the majority are so brainwashed that they're going to die if a kid takes off a mask.
Yeah.
If they would just read the science and the data. If they would just see that the student to ratio spread in CPS, there's only been three possible cases. Possible.
Yeah. Don't forget, it's just their science, though.
Pardon?
Only their science.
Right, but they never attribute to what articles are you putting this.
No.
So with more on this and with more on what's going around on the other side of the globe, we welcome back to the program our good friend Dominic Green. He's editor of Spectator's World Edition. Good morning, Dominic. How are you?
Good morning, Amy. Good morning, John. I'm not wearing a mask.
Morning.
Well, we got to cancel the interview. All right, so you heard about the barbarism that's going on in Illinois. What's going on in your world?
Well, I tell you, in my world, we are in much the same situation with the masking. In London, of course, there is no mask. In Britain, they've given up on it. They declared it over. But where I am in Boston, Massachusetts, of course, the mask mandate still applies in the school, even though actually it doesn't. It's about to expire everywhere else. This is insane, and the least dangerous people, children, are being exposed to the most demanding of conditions. It's psychological cruelty, and it indicates how far from reality the people who rule us have drifted.
And your new mayor is from Barrington, a graduate of Barrington High School. The new mayor of Boston.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I know, but
I'm sorry.
But our parents fighting back. I mean, here we're seeing a revolt, and it's working because we have 862 or 64 school districts, and close to 600 now are going mask optional. Is there any revolt there in Massachusetts, in Boston?
There is to a degree. I attended a basketball game for one of my children last week, and in fact, I was delighted when I walked in that nobody was wearing a mask inside the arena at all. So it is happening in that grassroots way. But, the distance between people and the government has widened so wide over the last couple of years that there's this. We actually can see how dangerously out of touch they are. We see it in the response to masking. We see it in the response to the Canadian truckers' protests. People who are elected are demonstrating to us their inability to grasp what the realities are and to respond accordingly. And it's discrediting the idea of liberal democracy.
Well, did Boris Johnson drop all of the mandates, the mask mandates, vaccine mandates, all of that because of the Partygate investigation? And can you tell people what that is?
The timing was very fortuitous, wasn't it?
Yes.
To be honest, Boris is one of those people who changes his mind like he changes his socks, or his wives even. But in this case, he did start off with, he is basically a libertarian-minded person, but he found himself, I think, poorly advised. At first, the government in Britain wanted to do what they did in Sweden, which was basically to sort of tough it out and go for herd immunity and not have masking and lockdowns. But he was dissuaded otherwise. And now, of course, until very recently, the British were then trapped for 2 years in this ever-shifting sea of regulations, which, of course, people cheated on because you have to live. And that included Boris and his own staff. And now they're catching the resentment for what everyone has put up with. It was a terrible breach of trust what they did.
Well,
Absolutely no doubt about that.
have the people forgiven him for it? And how many parties did he have?
These were kind of, glass of warm white wine and a cheese straw kind of parties. There were no flashing lights and music. It was just people kicking back at their desk at the end of the day. And I think, from what I hear, it was an extremely regular occurrence because that's how people are in Britain. They've always got a glass of warm wine or beer to hand. But they put people through. You couldn't go to a funeral, for instance, of your loved ones. And so people are outraged to find this out. They will not forgive it, but they might forget it if, for instance, he's able to fix the economy or do something else which will demonstrate that for all his failures, and there have been quite a few in the last couple of years, that he might actually be able to do something well. So I'd say he's down, but he's not out.
All right. It was also big news coming from across the pond is Prince Andrew's sexual trafficking settlement with Virginia. Yeah, Giuffre. So what?
Yeah, well,
what's
Prince
that
Andrew
all
is
about?
And out, I would say. Yeah, he is perhaps the first man in history to give $16 million to a woman he says he's never met. It's obvious that this is effectively, in the court of public opinion, as well as in the court of New York, an admission of guilt and responsibility. The statement from Prince Andrew says that he has never intended to malign Miss Giuffre's character. And I can tell you from my personal experience that while all this was going on, I was approached by representatives of Prince Andrew's lawyers and given a document which was most definitely an attack on Miss Giuffre's character. And I didn't want to run it because I thought this was a sort of dirty and nasty way to do things. But there was from what I can tell, a planned effort to attack her character, in fact, by Prince Andrew's lawyers using the media, and it failed. And I'm very glad, personally, that it did fail. As far as I can tell, he did have a case to answer, and the fact that he's paid it off before it went to court indicates that he knew perfectly well that he had, in fact, committed a crime.
But $16 million? Who's footing the bill for that? I hope not the taxpayers.
Mummy's going to bail him out. As always, this is the thing. As usual in these instances, you feel for the Queen, who has conducted herself with sort of dignity and hard work, and is in her mid-90s and still doing it, and all around her children just behaving in shocking manners. I mean, in the same week as Prince Andrew basically had to ask her for a bit of pocket money, it emerged that Prince Charles's charity was accused of selling titles, in the House of Lords and so on, for donations. Which is it's just cheap and nasty stuff. It's not a good week for the royal family, and I have the feeling also this won't be the end of the story. That now Andrew has basically admitted his guilt. He's going to lose that protection that he gets in the same way as Meghan and Harry lost it, and all kinds of other things, I'm sure, will come out about Prince Andrew, including his very complicated financial affairs.
Wow. So does the FBI still trying to, interview him? Do we know? Or does this end everything? So there's going to be no criminal probe into his actions because it looks pretty bad. You're a prince and you're sleeping with a 17-year-old girl.
Yeah, this looks to me like an attempt to close the book on it. And Prince Andrew should just count himself lucky that he wasn't expected to suicide himself as well as other players in this story seem to have been. So I don't expect it to go to court again. But as I said, the Court of Public Opinion, its verdict will be reopened and re-examined every time new information comes up about Prince Andrew's private behavior. And I'm afraid to say that from what we know, his financial affairs have been pretty dubious. He was already sort of taken halfway out of the public eye because of his finances, and now has been, cast into the outer darkness, really. But it's not going to work. There is lots more to be found out about this person, and all of it will be bad in my book.
All right, so let's move on to more pressing matters, and that's Putin. He said, he's withdrawing troops along the border, when in actuality, he actually added 7,000 plus troops to the border. What should our role be in that, and what is the UK's role in all this?
Well, I would say, firstly, that it would be a grave error to fight Putin over Ukraine. There are things which are worth fighting for and which the US and its allies are in a position to fight for, and I don't believe that Ukraine is one of them. It is not in NATO. It is not in the European Union. And already, actually, this is the thing. Beyond all the shouting about war and, we have to defend this and that, the US has agreed already to the principle of breaking down Ukraine's sovereignty. After the last round in 2014-15, the US backed the German and French plan called Minsk II, which proposed basically to federate Ukraine and allow the Russian-speaking areas that Putin annexed to effectively become self-governing to a degree. And that gave them, of course, a veto over Ukraine. So we have already quietly accepted it. It was good enough for the last Democratic administration, and it's good enough for the current one. But it has to effectively cover its behind and organize its retreat, and it will claim and seek a triumph of diplomacy. I don't believe that Putin has any need to go into Ukraine now. He can rattle his saber, which is certainly what he's doing, and he's playing a blinder. He's playing a wonderful game when it comes to disinformation and just fooling us. And of course, our media are doing his work for him in that regard, and that we're running with every possible, a story that is cooked up. Yeah. But my suspicion, based on previous form in this, is that the US is looking to get out rather than to go further in. That there are lines in the sand to be drawn, for instance, around the European Union or around NATO. And it's another question whether this administration is really committed to doing that. And I don't believe it is. I think sending a very small contingent of Americans to Estonia or Poland is a hostage to fortune. The Europeans themselves, France, Germany, they're not interested in defending the borders of the EU to that degree. Why should the United States be doing it for them? So I think we will see more of this, and I think the Baltics will be Putin's next target.
Yeah, we know how drawing those red lines in the sand worked for the last Democrat administration. But you didn't see any of this. You saw none of this with President Trump because he showed resolve. He showed that you mess with America, we will bomb you. But, where's Germany in all this? I mean, they have so much to lose when it comes to the, I think it's called the Nord Pipeline, Nord 2 or something like that.
Yeah, Nord Stream, yeah.
Nord Stream 2.
This is one of the craziest things. You're right. The Angela Merkel committed Germany to getting its natural gas from Russia. And in part, this is because the Germans closed down their nuclear power stations. Right. They went down the green madness route, which the Democrats are trying to take the U.S. now. They cut off nuclear and carbon sources of energy without inventing the green ones that were supposed to replace it. And so now they're going to buy the gas in from overseas. This, given the severity of the winter, it's not quite as bad as in Chicago, but it's still a pretty extreme winter in Germany, and means they're dependent effectively for fuel, one of the most basic things. It's stunning, a stunning act of incompetence, really, on many levels. And it's unfortunately of a part with Germany is committed to Russia in that way. It's committed to China in its trade position. in Washington, people will still claim that Germany is, our natural partner, but unfortunately, it's not. It's the largest economy within the European Union, which itself is a big economy on paper. But Germany's policy is taking it into the camp of America's rivals and enemies. And we saw last week the announcement from Putin and Xi saying that Russia and China would coordinate ever closer and basically support each other as they redraw the map in their own backyards. And Germany has made its peace with that. It seems to have sided with Russia, sided with China. And that's going to be a real problem for the U.S. And the question returns again, if this is what's going to happen to Europe, why would American soldiers be expected to die on behalf of Europeans who are pursuing their own foolish policies for their own, short-term gains?
Yep. All right, Dominic Green, we're going to have to leave it there for today. But thank you so much for coming on, and we'll have you back soon.
It's always great. Thank you.
Thank you. And he's editor of the Spectator's World Edition, and he joined us on our Turnkey.pro answer line.
The stories you need to know to start your day. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Famous conservative quotes presented by Automated Systems.
Winston Churchill wisely stated, "Fear is a reaction. Courage is a decision."
Listen, to all you manufacturing companies out there, I encourage you to call my friend Laz Coolshar from Automated Systems. Automated Systems is a software and